do the most, but I do a lot. I'ma make a toast, cause we still alive. No big, I feel like Pac. I shoot a shot. I'm coming in hot.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to East Coast Rivals. To my right, Jacob, introduce yourself, man. They know who you are.
Jacob Southpaw Siesta.
Scott, your turn, buddy.
Scott Braveheart Bailey.
All right, guys, we got to work on your energy. Anyway, what's going on? We are back. We are talking a bunch of different topics tonight. We're getting away from football a little bit. We're going to start talking boxing, but we're obviously going to go back to it because that's all we talk about. Anyway, you boys, you want to start off? Let's say congratulations to the LA Lakers taking home the NBA championship, tying the Boston Celtics with the most championships in the history of the NBA, and giving LeBron, what is it, his fourth, fifth?
I believe it's his fifth.
Is it his fifth?
Yeah, it's the COVID ring, though.
Yeah, it's the bubble ring.
The bubble ring.
I thought it was 4-2. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I know.
That's literally how much I can't stand LeBron James.
Yeah, he's not as good as Kobe or Jordan, so
Exactly. I agree.
it's all good.
I'm sure we're going to get plenty of comments about those ones. I'm curious to hear all those arguments. I tell you what, listen, we want to get a guest speaker on this show in the next couple of weeks, so I got a little bit of an idea. Whoever has the balls to get into a comment war on this post, defending LeBron versus you against either your pick of Kobe or Jordan. We'll leave it at a max of 20 comments.
We'll do it like this. Jacob, wear the Kobe jersey. Anybody else wears the LeBron jersey. We get them in the ring, and we have a boxing match. And whoever comes out alive, that's the best player of all time.
You don't want to do that, bro.
This just got real gladiator real quick. I say what we do is whoever wants to get into a comment war with Jacob on this post, we'll bring him on the next show. What do you think? You like it?
Let's do it.
All right.
Bring it on.
So we're not going to be talking about basketball for a while, but we are talking MLB, and I'm going to hand it over to Scott because I want to hear an update on the AL and NLCS.
Well, right now in the ALCS, it's in the top of the seventh, 3-2 Houston to Tampa. Tampa didn't look as sharp as they did last night, but they've been playing great defensively, great pitching. They're not hitting the ball particularly well. They're just scoring at the time where they need the score. And their pitching has been phenomenal, which is what got them here right now. I still think they're going to make it to the World Series. On the other hand, the Dodgers and the Atlanta Braves series, the Braves are up 2-1. Last night, they lost 15-30. I knew going into that game we were going to lose badly. Not that bad, because going out of game 2, they came back when they were down 7-0 at one point. So their bat's kind of woken up, and Kyle Wright is a good pitcher, but just not as effective or doesn't have the ice in his veins like Max Fried and Ian Anderson do. Which that's why those first 2 games were big for Atlanta. So we could have lost by 100 last night. It doesn't matter. We're still up 2-1. They have Kershaw going tonight. They have Bryce Wilson. We'll wait and see how this goes. Hopefully this lit a fire. The only positive coming out of last night was the Braves took out Freeman and Acuna and most of their starters. So technically they had a day off yesterday. And they did not use their main components out of their bullpen. So if there was a light at the end of the tunnel in last night's game, that's one positive they had.
What's your take so far on the AL and the NLCS, Jacob?
Well, it's kind of nice to be here in Tampa and seeing the Rays win a lot of games and not see any fans change anything. Like, even though we live here in Tampa, I haven't noticed a difference whatsoever about anything Tampa Bay Rays. It's unfortunate.
That's nice. Why?
I don't know. It's instead of, Scott was talking about it earlier, the bandwagon fans and this and that, and one of our previous podcasts. So it's people jumping on the bandwagon, rubbing it in your face. I don't know. It's just non-existent here, so you don't have to worry about it when you had a miserable season like you and I had.
It's true.
So
I don't know. I got to tell you what, man. I feel like we're going to hear a lot of if, let's say, knock on wood, Rays end up pulling it out, right? Lightning win, Rays win. I feel like for the next 4 months, all we're going to hear is, we're bringing home the 3-P. Here come the Bucks. We're going to do it.
Who is it? Championship Bay or something like that. I forget what
Is that what they're calling it now?
Yeah, they call it something. Yeah,
Well, I feel like
Champa
I
Bay
feel like
or something like that.
I think the NLCS is more of the entertaining series between the two because you have Atlanta and you have Dodgers, and they both have stellar lineups and both great pitching. But to me, the Dodgers are, I don't know, there's just something about them where they have this arrogance where they feel like
They deserve to
that
be
they
there.
deserve to be there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the arrogance that a lot of people are upset about with them.
That's why I'm
They're
kind
not on
of.
St. Louis they're not on St. Louis Cardinals level, but you know, if you feel like you feel like you should be there no matter what, that's going to come across as arrogant.
That's why I'm kind of hoping this ends up being a pretty early series, and the Rays can end up pulling it out tonight or tomorrow. Because if this does go to a Game 7, I feel like it's going to be a very different scenario for the Rays to deal with in these first 3 games. I think they still got them on their heels, even though they did lose last night. So they need to pull out the win, or else it's not going to be pretty.
I was talking about the. What's your take on the NLCS? Sorry.
Oh, apologies. Sorry, I thought we were still talking AL. Clearly, I'm not paying attention this evening.
Attaboy.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Yeah, I was talking about the.
I can only do so much, man. What can I say?
Yeah, I got you.
My take on the NL is from the games that I've watched so far. I mean, I understand where you're coming from with the now that I understand what you're talking about. I understand the arrogance of the Dodgers and the thought process of we deserve to be here and no one else does. And the Braves being the underdog team with the underdog mentality, but talent-wise, I just feel like the Braves have more of it. Even though the Dodgers went out and spent all this money on all these all-stars, they're not performing right now. So,
Yeah.
I personally
Before-
go ahead, bud.
Sorry, before last night, they were 5 for 68 at the point. Only had 5 hits before the second inning of the second game, or going into last night, they were 5 for 68.
Yeah.
They were terrible.
I mean, we knew a blowout game was going to happen. I mean, it was almost inevitable.
Yeah.
You talked about it before the series even started. I mean, it was the thought process. I guarantee tonight's game or the next game that they're played is going to be a 1-run game. If that, it's going to be.
It is tonight.
I know, but it's going to be a really low scoring
I
game.
don't know. I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I mean, to me, when you talk about, you mentioned that the Braves have more talent. I mean, I think that's they're performing
It's
at
their
a higher
performance, yeah.
level.
Yeah.
But last night's game, 15 runs, they've got to get. They're figuring out Atlanta's strategy when it comes to pitching, and we know they're a very talented team. So when they get motivated to actually and get in the right groove of things, with the talent that they have, it could be dangerous as it goes on. And we'll see what happens tonight, but I don't think it's going to be a 1-0 game. I think
I just want to touch on what. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to touch on what you just said there, if you don't mind. They did figure it out. I'm not trying to make excuses for Atlanta losing 15.
Oh, I wasn't talking about that. I'm just saying in general, they have the talent to turn it around and win the whole series.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that they don't. I said this series is far from over. I think you got to be a little bit naive as a Braves fan to think that you were to come in here and sweep the Dodgers. But you compare the two between Ian Anderson and Max Fried, they shut down the Dodgers, and they had no answer. Then they get Kyle Wright, and from the word go, Kyle Wright was not getting the same calls that Ian Anderson was getting or Max Fried. It was a different type of umpire. And then if you're down 4-0 with 2 outs, you can possibly come back from that. It's only the first inning. But when the ball bounces in the dirt and Josh Turner kicks it, and then they give him first base, and then next batter is Max Muncy hits a grand slam. You can't really compete with that. It was just shit happens. But it's, like I just said before, it gave Freeman and Acuna a night off. It gave a lot of guys a night off. We did not use big arms out of our bullpen. But from the third inning on, our bullpen shut them down. They couldn't score any runs after that 15. So I think our bullpen's better than theirs. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll find out. I mean, if you really think about it, there's only a few games left. So we shall see. But moving on. Guys, we got a big fight this weekend. We haven't talked about boxing on the podcast in a while. So, you know what, Southpaw? Why don't you lead us on this conversation?
October 17th, there's going to be a war. Loma versus Lopez. I had been talking about this for a long time. It was supposed to happen back in April, before all COVID hit. If some of our avid listeners, if you are an avid listener, there was an After Hours podcast with me and Scott where I was going on and on and on about Lomachenko Lopez. And now it's finally here. I can't wait. I'm excited for this fight. It's going to be very entertaining. They're both champions. The winner unifies the entire division at 135 pounds with a lot of big names in that division too. So it's not like they win this one, they're the champion, and that's it. They ride off into the sunset. No, there's going to be big challenges and big fights for the next few years, especially because a lot of these guys are young in the division. But this is, it is going to be an amazing fight. I like both fighters personally. I think both fighters are very, to a certain extent, humble. They don't necessarily go out and trash talk other fighters. They trash talk the guy that's in front of them. Obviously Lopez has been running his mouth quite a bit about Lomachenko, but that's all mind games. Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder did it. Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz did it before their rematch. It's just, that's how fighting is. You talk trash to the guy in front of you. It's when other fighters talk trash about other people that's irrelevant to them that makes them look like an idiot. But both Lomachenko and Lopez are very humble with the sport. They're both champions. They're both very talented fighters. Lopez about 10 years younger, so you have to wonder if there's maybe a speed and strength advantage because of the youth, the experience side going to Lomachenko. I've watched some of the press conferences that have gone on this week, and it's very hard for me to pick a winner in this fight, but I'm going to take Vasily Lomachenko to win this fight at the end of the day because there's just something about him. I don't know if it has anything to do with his background as Ukrainian or whatever his nationality is, but there's something about him that when he talks, it means something. And he is definitely taking care of business anytime he does talk. And this is one of the first times that I feel like someone's gotten under his skin, and maybe that's going to play into Lopez's advantage. But from watching the press conferences, I just think Lomachenko is ready. I think he's going to, even though he's been out of the ring for over a year and he's 32 years old, I think Lomachenko gets the win.
I think Lopez's arrogance is what's going to do him in. You say he's humble, but from the fights I've seen after the end of the fight, he's very arrogant. The way he talks in the press conferences to Lomachenko, he's been very arrogant. I think Lomachenko, like you said, it is, whether he wants to admit it or not, it is getting underneath his skin. But Lomachenko, when he talks, like you just did, it sounds like to me he's not nervous. He's been in this situation before where there's a fighter where they said, this is the guy. This is the guy that's going to knock off Lomachenko. This is the guy. I'm not saying taking anything away from Lopez. But Lomachenko, there's a quiet confidence about him every time he goes in. I don't know if it's just like you said from experience or what it is, but I have him by TKO in the 10th.
I wouldn't put a round on it because I don't think Lopez is the type that's going to quit. I don't think the ref is going to stop the fight unless it's just absolutely brutal. I think Lomachenko is going to, if he does win this fight, I think it goes by points. I think it's a decision. But he's going to, his strategy is going to take Lopez into deep waters. Lopez has not gone many fights. He has not gone the distance in many fights. And Lomachenko has. And Lomachenko has over 300 amateur fights, which is that experience that comes into play, even though he has less pro fights than Lopez does. To me, it's gonna end up being a decision in Lomachenko's favor because his footwork, his defense, his angles, because he moves around so much. There was a fighter, I think it was Jorge Linares, who fought Lomachenko a couple years ago, where he was talking about trying to hit Lomachenko. But Lomachenko is, with the fast hands and his footwork, he's laying punches on you. And then when it's your time to hit him, he's gone. He's moved. He's disappeared. So again, his footwork, he changes angles. His dad took him out of boxing when he was 10 years old and put him into dance to work on his footwork and work on the speed of his footwork. So that's a Ukrainian thing or whatever the nationality is, because Alexander Usyk did the same thing. But I don't know. If it's a knockout, I think it's Lopez. If it goes the distance, I think it's Lomachenko.
Unanimous or split?
That's so hard because boxing judges are so
that's a tough
terrible.
call.
I mean,
Yeah.
some people, the way they score things is ridiculous. I mean, there are
And
fights that most judges will have as like almost a 50-50. It's one guy won an extra round over the other and they had it close. And then there's another judge who has it completely in favor of one guy compared to the other, where it's like, what fight were you watching? So
Do you think Lopez's mindset, the reason why he's talked about so many knockouts, is obviously he's very talented and most of his fights are by knockout. And I think he knows if it goes the distance, he doesn't have a very good shot at winning. Is that going to more or less hurt his mindset going into it? Because if people have been trying to knock out Vasily, it has not happened because of the way he moves. Do you think that will play effect in the fight where he's trying to knock him out? Because a lot of people don't think Lopez can go the distance with Lomachenko, and if he does, I don't know if Lopez has confidence in thinking that he's going to outscore Lomachenko on the card.
well, there's a little bit of everything here because Lopez has never fought anybody like Lomachenko. I mean, that's plain and simple. And not many people have ever fought a guy on the same caliber as Lomachenko. But has Lomachenko fought a guy with the power that Lopez has? Or the speed that
what
Lopez
was that
has? I don't.
Brazilian guy?
Everyone talks about this is the toughest fight of Lopez's career. But at the same time, I think you could say that this is the toughest fight of Loma's career. I mean, Lomachenko has fought Gary Russell, Jorge Linares, Luke Campbell. He's fought some big names. But I think Teofimo Lopez is better than all those guys. So when it comes down to, everyone's kind of putting Lomachenko on this pedestal. I mean, I did the same thing. I mean, I picked Lomachenko to win the fight, but I'm kind of rooting for Lopez to win the fight because I think that's the favorite. You always kind of root for the underdog, especially when it comes to boxing, if that's not your favorite fighter. Like if you don't have a horse in the race, you kind of root for the underdog.
Absolutely.
Usually. And that's kind of where I'm in. I love both fighters. I mean, they're both extremely talented, but I'm kind of rooting for Lopez. So, Lomachenko's not going to go anywhere if he loses. He already has one loss in his career. So him losing, I don't think necessarily hurts him. Whereas Lopez losing, he moves up to 140. And with 140, there's nobody in the 140-pound division. If he wins, he stays at 135, and he fights all the other young stars, which makes it more interesting for boxing.
And that one loss he had, a lot of people were saying Lomachenko won that fight, but we won't get into that. Is there anything else on this card that interests you?
Absolutely not. They did a terrible job on the overall card, and they knew they didn't have to. They knew they didn't have to make this a great card because they had a fight of the year candidate sitting here at the main event. So they didn't load it up like they might with other fights, but that's okay.
I'm pretty excited to watch this.
Gives me plenty of time to finish the Georgia-Alabama game, so I'm not upset about it.
If they play.
Yeah, if they play. We'll see. Speaking of that, unless you guys want to keep talking boxing, I say we transition over to college football because, are we on week 7?
Something like that.
Yeah. Week 7 in college football. And, I mean, I want to know what your guys' initial impressions are so far of COVID ball this year, if you want to call it. College has been interesting, and it's hard to put a beat on how I feel about it.
So I have multiple opinions on this. And I'm not necessarily going to talk about any team specifically. I mean, I might.
North Carolina.
I might. Well, no, I might talk about a couple teams, and it'll be maybe a little bit biased, but I feel like I have good reasons for it. Is A, we should not start the regular season with rankings. There should be no rankings at the beginning of the season.
Just this year or in general?
In general.
Really?
In general, and I can get to that in a second. But then the second thing is that I do like that they've kind of put together this year because they've had to with COVID, and hopefully that can generate things, but only sticking to your conference. don't play any cream puffs. You know, they schedule 12 games a year usually. You play 8 conference games, and then you play 4 non-conference games. And most of the time, 3 of those non-conference games are against lousy opponents. It's irrelevant. Play the best teams. I mean, you can have a couple non-conference games against like UCF playing Georgia Tech. Like those are 2, you know, UCF's on the rise in their conference. Georgia Tech is still in a Power 5. So you need to have those, you know, mid-major schools still playing, you know, the other big conferences. But take away the 1AA teams. Screw that. I know that's how they get their money. That's how it funds their program. But sorry, not everyone can play this game.
Whoa.
I mean, let's face it. I mean,
You got some passion behind this.
because I'm tired of watching teams like Florida and Alabama play 3 Division I AA teams a year and then automatically be in the top 5.
So
too.
you got to love this season because all this is conference games.
Exactly. And that's what makes it interesting. And then this is why I think there should be no rankings. Before week 1 started, well, technically it was like week 2 or 3, but it was when the SEC started. We were talking about the LSU. Should they be ranked? Should they be ranked higher? They're ranked number 6, whatever. What happens? They lose. Mm-hmm. So they drop down to like number 17.
They're out now.
And then we had Mississippi State, who beat them. All of a sudden, they were ranked the week after. Who did they lose to the week after that week? Arkansas. So you mean to tell me just because they beat a team that was ranked high, they move up and then they lose to a shit team? Like, in the beginning of the season, we know nothing about these teams. Like Michael just mentioned, LSU's out. They've already lost twice. We shouldn't do a ranking until like midway through the season, because that's when we know what these teams are. It's not like football the NFL, where they can keep their team year in and year out. We know what the Kansas City Chiefs are going to look like year in and year out based on their contracts. But with recruiting, you lose. Like LSU lost every offensive player. So how can we say that they're going to be the 6th best team in the country at the beginning of the year?
I can tell you right now, there's one reason why that will never happen. The conference games, I agree with that. I mean, playing the cream puff games, they're not enjoyable to watch, and I understand that. And I feel like everybody personally agrees. The reason they will never get rid of the AP rankings, even though they go off the college football playoff rankings now, which they do pick middle of the season, they don't even bring those up until middle of the season. The reason AP is still around is because it sells tickets. It makes money. It 100%.
Not necessarily.
Are you a top 10 game in week 2 or week 3 getting played? A number 9 playing a number 4, that sells. The advertisement, the TV time. I mean,
but an undefeated Miami versus an undefeated Clemson last week, if they had no rankings on it, you think that's still going to sell out?
It would still sell, but it's
still going to be game of the week. But then you see like Miami, who was ranked 7, playing number 1. Now, granted, Clemson's the best team in the country, and I think by far, but they got their ass waxed. 42-17, like, come on, you should not be ranked number 7 and get beat that bad against number 1. The margin should not be that big.
I have noticed, and Scott, I mean, let me know if you agree or not, because I want you to weigh in on this. The rankings this year, I feel like, have been so off.
And that's what I'm saying. Don't even bother with
I
it.
personally feel like this year has been worse than others, and part of the reason why is because I feel like it's all conference games. Another thing, I just counted it off. There are 8 teams in the top 25 that have not played a game yet. The Pac-12 and the Big Ten have not played any games yet.
And they originally took them off, and that's why we had teams like Arkansas State ranked. And then they put them back in, and then all of a sudden Arkansas State's gone.
Right.
So it's like, again, why even bother with the rankings until we get into like week 8? We know what the teams are, and then you can put the rankings. Because here's what messes this all up. Because you have a team like LSU that was ranked 6th in the beginning of the year, and Mississippi State beats them. Mississippi State now gets all this credit for beating LSU. In the early stage of the season, which could potentially help Arkansas, because Arkansas then beat a ranked team. But in reality, if LSU loses 5 games this year, are we going to go back and look at Mississippi State's win over LSU and grade it that highly? They do, because at the time it was a ranked team. They were going to say at the end of the year, oh, they were 1-0 against a top 10 team. But in reality, at the end of the year, LSU lost 5 games. They weren't even close to the top 25. So it really skews a lot of things when it
Yeah.
comes to the rankings and teams winning games early on in the season. Just take all that out until we get into that college football playoff. Because again, like you said, that's the only thing that matters now.
Mm-hmm.
And then give your rankings.
I've heard those points, and I like what Jacob's saying, because how many times in going to the SEC or going into the top four, they look at their wins and losses to decide who goes into the final playoff. Well, this team beat this team at this point, but look at the rest of their schedule, how they did. They did like shit. So that hurts them. It can hurt them and make it a positive at the same time. I like going in with no rankings. I like that. I don't think your high school your recruiting and this, that, and the other should affect your rankings in the top 25. Like, North Carolina is ranked 5th right now. And to be honest with you, Virginia Tech only lost that game by 11. They still gave up over 300 yards rushing. North Carolina did. And does that mean they're a bad team? No, it's just I don't think they're top 5 material. You have Cincinnati Bearcats ranked 8th. Who have they really faced?
Mm-hmm.
And, you don't know who they've really faced. Clemson, hands down to me, I think if you want a championship or maybe you should, I don't know how you could work this out, because Clemson is clearly the number 1 team in the country. It's not even a question about that. But LSU should have never been ranked 6th because they lost their entire team, and they're coming in with a new quarterback. And obviously their defense was gutted. And look what happened. They're not
Two
a
losses
ranked
already.
team.
Same thing happened to Florida
So-
State when James Winston left, though.
No.
They were ranked top 5, and then Francois got hurt.
No, that was the year after.
Was that the year after?
That was the year after.
They were still
Because
ranked
they still won 10 games that year, or 11 games, beat Michigan in the Orange Bowl.
with Francois. You are correct. It was the year after.
That's my point. This is my point. Is just like LSU.
But that was also
lost.
an injury,
I think
though.
they said they lost. They lost the most players in college football. Why are they ranked 6th
Yeah.
over a quarterback that we don't know who's been established yet?
That's
We
what
don't
I'm
know.
saying.
You guys don't think the rankings have anything to do with the fact that COVID has completely changed this year's college football season?
I mean, to a certain
No.
degree, yeah, just a little bit, because
I've never
in the
seen-
beginning of the year they took out the Big Ten and Pac-12 teams, and now that they're playing
Now
again,
they're
they put
putting
them
them
back
back
in. But
I haven't
but-
seen rankings this skewed, though, I feel like, in years.
I mean,
I
I
don't think
have.
Notre Dame should be ranked 4th. I
You
don't
hate
think
Notre Dame,
should be
though.
ranked this high. But that's not the point. The point is that Notre Dame they have a decent football team, but they're not top 4. They go up against Clemson. If we were to start the college playoff today, they would go up against Clemson and get fucking murdered.
I think Clemson would murder most teams. But no, I do agree with you're saying. Like,
They're
Notre-
also
But then,
play-
as a college player,
We'll find out because
every
they're
time Notre
playing.
Dame here,
Hey, we'll find out because they're playing Clemson on the 7th of November.
that's
yeah,
gonna be a
but
hell of a
every
game.
time Notre Dame has cost a lot of teams some playoff spots because they're not part of a conference, and then they go to the playoffs and then they get destroyed, or they go to the championship game and then get destroyed. It doesn't matter. They shouldn't have been in that game in the first place.
Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't disagree with what you're saying, with the fact that rankings in the beginning of a season don't make sense. Just like, I hate to bash on our own segment because it's one of my favorite, but us picking weekly top 5s in the NFL right now doesn't make sense either, because so much can happen during the season. But
You think
what
it's-
I'm saying, hold on. What I'm saying is they are never going to get rid of rankings.
No, they're not. They're not.
No.
That is never going to happen.
But they should. if
Look,
they want to make
think
it as fair, a fair level playing field to everyone, that's what they've been talking about, expanding the playoff and this and that. They're giving every team a chance, but yet no small school mid-major has ever made it to the playoff. Because that was the original plan, was when Boise State had their year. It was like, oh, we need to make a playoff so those little guys can have a chance.
Or when Hawaii went undefeated,
Yeah,
and they
and
tried to put Hawaii in that.
yeah, and they're not doing it. So taking out the rankings potentially helps. And then you
And then
judge
look at
after week 8 the performance and the record of those teams, then you make your ranking.
How many teams
Remember
play
when-
college football Division A or whatever the fuck it's called.
1 AA, it's about 100, 110.
Do you remember
No matter if they get rid of the
USF was
ranking,
ranked?
if they get rid of the number next to the name, they're still going to be ranked. You know what I mean?
And that's
Look
what,
at US.
and that goes against the
Exactly.
argument. That goes against the argument of you saying, is it going to sell tickets or not? It doesn't matter if there's a ranking next to them because
It's a marketing. It's a marketing.
teams are
force,
still
100%.
people are gonna like Georgia, Alabama. They're both undefeated. We all know those are two of the best teams in the country. Everyone's gonna watch, or people are gonna go. You don't need the number next to the name to sell the
But
ticket.
if you look at the rankings right now, and you see on a billboard number 5 North Carolina versus number 8 Cincinnati, yes, that is actually their rankings right now. They're both in the top 10.
Yeah, we talked about
Those are going to sell more tickets, other than them saying North Carolina versus Cincinnati.
And another thing
it.
to add to
Potentially,
Jacob's
but
argument,
I mean, at the
Remember
same
the
time,
year-
maybe not.
Did you make a wardrobe change?
yes. Do you remember that year when USF was ranked second in the nation?
Yeah.
And then as soon as they were ranked second, they got their ass stomped on Thursday night with Rutgers when Ray Rice was still at Rutgers. So there's a benefit to the playoff, the postseason rankings, or the rankings, and then there's not. So you think it's a mess now? Wait till Big Ten and Pac-12 start playing football. Then it's going to be a real argument. I do not envy the the college playoff community this year.
No, I don't envy him any year. Nobody's happy.
Because
with
if
the
you
rankings
have an 8-0 Ohio State and then you have an SEC team that went an 11-1, who are you going to let in?
Yeah, no, it definitely does
Look
make
at the
it
Pac-12.
difficult.
They're playing like 6 games this year.
Yeah.
None of them are
Playing
going to
8
make it.
games, and so is the Big Ten. It's like, who do you let in? Do you let an undefeated Ohio State 8-0, or do you let an 11-1 SEC team in? You don't know.
Yeah, it's
I
going
do
to
not envy you. Yeah, it's going to be a fucking nightmare.
All right, before we leave college football, I do want to ask you guys, are there any teams that are really standing out to you as impressive so far? Any teams that you're like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. I'm curious to see where this goes.
Georgia.
Thanks.
No, and I'm not trying to say that to be a dick. I'm saying that because they're the type of team to me that they would have you know they were going to have a good offensive line. You know they were going to have a good defense. The quarterback play has surpassed everybody's expectations as of right now. Surpassed it. No one thought Bennett was going to be as good as he is. He's doing the right stuff, protecting the ball, and making teams nervous in the backfield because he can get outside that pocket and he has a stronger arm than people think he does. But he's playing smart football and he's not costing Georgia games and letting the defense do their job. So that's what I like about Georgia so far.
I don't really have one.
All right.
I don't really have a team.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I mean, I feel
What-
like the teams that we expected to do well are doing well, and the teams we expected to not do well are not doing well. I mean, maybe the only one I could think of is I'm surprised to see North Carolina as ranked as high as they are, and I'm surprised to see them playing as well as they are.
Well, you're only surprised because they're ranked.
Well,
Like they could in a normal year with all the other teams playing. I mean, North Carolina may have not been ranked.
yeah.
Quick side note.
They got a quick jump up because again the Big Ten teams and the Pac-12 teams were out, so they got an easy jump up to like number 15 after going 2-0. And then when they decided to put the other teams back in, they're like, well, they're 5-0. We're not going to just move them out now. So they got a benefit to this whole COVID thing. I mean, they're definitely impressive. They've got. I mean, Mac Brown is a very good coach. He knows what he's doing. This is one of the more talented quarterbacks that he's ever had, and they've got a very good run game. So
And
I
they beat-
mean, North Carolina would be the team that I would say as well.
They beat the shit out of Virginia Tech, too. Holy.
They lost by 11, asshole.
Moving into the NFL. Week 5, what a week it was, filled with COVID, filled with heartache, filled with undefeated teams going down. It was fun to watch. I enjoyed it. What's your takeaway, Jacob?
The Browns? The Browns?
Fucking
The Browns. The Browns are 4-1. Who would have thought in any year that we would be talking about the Browns being 4-1 in a playoff picture right now? I know it's only week 5, but Usually the Browns, even though every year, over the last couple years, we've been talking about preseason predictions and the Browns. Some people have. Jesus, hey, they're 4-1. Their offense is clicking. They're scoring, doing some a little trickeration. Jarvis Landry throwing touchdown passes. I mean, hey, they're 4-1. They've got a tough matchup this week, but I mean, that's my biggest takeaway is the fact that after week 5, they're 4-1 and looking pretty good.
Scott, what about you?
My biggest takeaway is I was going to say Cleveland, but
Sorry, bud.
it's okay. Is the AFC entirely, to be honest with you. There's like an 8-dog race compared to the NFC, where it seems like it's a 2-dog race between Seattle and Green Bay. No offense to Chicago, but no one really has faith in them at 4-1. The AFC is just wide the F open, especially with Kansas City now signing Le'Veon Bell. Spoiler alert. You just don't know what's going to happen with these teams. You just don't know. And it's really anyone's ball game in that AFC.
You know, mine isn't a team. Mine isn't a division. Mine isn't a conference. Mine's a player. My biggest takeaway is Big Dick Nick Foles. I'm just impressed. I mean, I feel like the only time he plays well is when he's coming in off of another player who got hurt. And he's also Tom Brady's curse. You guys think that Tom Brady, before his career is over, is ever going to beat Nick Foles?
It's like he almost beat Eli.
Yeah, who knows?
We'll see what happens.
Who knows if they even get a chance to play again?
That's a good point.
Third time's a charm.
I don't know. We'll see. But let's move into Week 6. Week 6 preview game. Scott, what's one game you're excited to watch this weekend?
I'm pretty excited to see the Steelers Browns. And I know it's going to be interesting to see because of what happened last year with Myles Garrett and him losing $1 million in fines and losing the last 6 games. I don't know if that's going to show out there because Big Ben wasn't part of that game. But I think these two teams need a win to stay on pace with the Ravens. And it will also see where the Cleveland Browns really are. Because Baker Mayfield is not good in the fourth quarter, and Steelers had a little bit of a scare, did not play as sharp against the Eagles. It's going to be interesting to see. I think it's going to be a good game.
So your game was playoff teams, two playoff, or I mean at this point, 2 teams that are right there.
It's kind of a big game right now.
Yeah.
Very.
So and as far as what team's going to continue to rise, my game is more so what team can come up from the ashes and maybe make a run. And it's going into the NFC, the Atlanta Falcons versus the Minnesota Vikings, a combined record of 1-9. Again, I don't think we would have been talking about the Falcons and Vikings going a combined record of 1-9 after week 5. So they play each other this week. Which team can get a win here and maybe jumpstart their season and maybe make a push? Because at this point in the year, they really, if they're going to do it, it has to start now. So I'm curious to see which team, the Falcons or the Vikings, can get this win and make that playoff push.
I'm on a similar thought process of you. I'm not thinking playoff teams for a game I'm excited to watch. I'm actually looking forward to watching with the Detroit Lions and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville has given up the past 3 games to teams who have a below 500 record. I mean, and they came out and, the first game they lost just by barely. Second game was a pretty impressive win, and then just haven't done shit since then, basically. And the Detroit Lions can't get out of their own way. I'm curious to see what the aftermath is going to be of whatever team loses. What will Jacksonville do if they lose to Detroit? If Detroit loses, are they going to get rid of Matty P? I mean, we already saw one coach get fired this year. We'll see. On that note, though, let's transition into our pick'ems. Apologies to our fans. We do not have the current rankings. I believe
I think Scott is
currently
ahead
in
by
first
1
place.
or 2.
I'm trailing pretty far behind. I don't think it's as big of a deficit as I thought. I think I'm just saying that to keep my own hopes up.
It might be a little bit closer than it was from week
Week 3 was
3.
rough. Yeah. But let's start 1 o'clock game. The Washington football team versus the New York Giants. Scott Baylor.
They already said Kyle Allen's going to start in this game. I don't know if that's going to be enough. I'm going to go with the Giants in this one. Just from experience with Daniel Jones and all of them, I feel like Giants.
Not so fast.
Oh, God. Did you really?
Yes. I'm going with Washington. You talked about the experience with Daniel Jones. Well, the experience with Daniel Jones in New York is losing. So I'm taking Washington. They'll figure out their quarterback thing. I think defensively they're a little more talented. I think they've got more weapons offensively. They just got to figure out their quarterback dilemma. But I think Washington takes this one.
I'm with Scott. I think the Giants are going to pull out the W. I think he's right. I think, Daniel Jones doesn't have a lot of wins on his record, but they're also not that bad of losses either. And one more thing. Devontae Freeman's looking pretty good.
He ain't no Saquon Barkley.
He's no Saquon Barkley. You are correct, but he's looking pretty good.
The front 7 of Washington might have an answer for it. We'll see.
He's the generic brand of cereal.
That's not that bad of a comp.
But like a generic brand of cereal that's good. We're not
It's
talking
not
about
the same taste, but it gets the job done.
Yeah.
It's true. All right, let's move to 4 o'clock. The probably biggest game of this week. The Green Bay Packers versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jacob, we'll start with you.
I got the Packers in this one. Bucks offensively struggled a little bit with the Bears. Now, I know the Bears defense is much better than the Packers, but the Packers had a week off. Any of the bumps and bruises that any of their players had, they're healed up, they're healthy. Bucks have been dealing with injuries. Mike Evans is questionable again. Chris Godwin, who knows if he's playing. They're dealing with a lot of injuries. Leonard Fournette, who knows. I like the Packers in this one.
I'm going to back that. I think the Packers are going to take this one, but it's going to be a damn close game because you're right, the defense for the Packers is not as good as the defense for the Bears. The reason I'm not taking the Bucks and my boy Tommy is because their offense just is not clicking. There's problems on the field and off that I feel like we're starting to show during game time.
Yeah, the starting to show like he needs to go collect his AARP card.
You're better than that, Joe.
I mean, he didn't know it was 4th down when
It's gonna
it
be
was 4th down.
It's gonna be a high scoring game. It's gonna be a shootout. Scott.
I feel like this defense the Packers are facing is probably their first, I would say, legitimate defense that they're going to be facing. And Packers, they are good offensively with Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers. But that receiving core still worries me, and that secondary of theirs still worries me as well. I feel like the Bucs are still, even though they didn't really show in the Chicago game, I still feel like they are headed in the right direction. But I'm going with Tampa Bay in this game.
So we haven't had a collective decision yet. Let's see if we have one for the Sunday night game. The LA Rams versus the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to go ahead and start it off. I'm pretty sure this will be our first collective decision. I see the LA Rams steamrolling the 49ers.
I don't know about steamrolling. I mean, we watched the Dolphins steamroll the 49ers, which was a huge shock to everyone. I think the 49ers will come out with a little more spunk, I guess you can say, a little more edge.
Pizzazz.
Yeah. They have to play with a little bit of fire, especially after losing that bad to Miami. However, their quarterback situation is a mess. They've got too many injuries. Rams win.
I'm going with San Francisco. They have had problems in their corner.
I don't think he was saying San Francisco. I just think he was getting into his.
I was saying San Francisco have injuries at cornerback positions. They were struggling at the corner position. It's the reason why Fitzpatrick was able to pick them apart. But I am going with the Rams on this one because Jimmy Garoppolo is more likely not playing because the way he played on Sunday, you could tell he's not healthy.
I'm not going to lie, Scott, you threw me for a loop there. You started that sentence with, I'm going with the 49ers. So I was pretty thrown off. I thought that was one of your bold predictions for the week.
Oh.
A little disappointed you didn't follow through with it. All right. No, we did not skip the Thursday night game. The NFL did. There's 2 Monday night games going on. First one is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buffalo Bills, who just came off a pretty tough loss last week, if you ask me. Both teams, actually. Who wants to take it? Who wants the Monday night game?
I'm going to go the Bills. I think they just had a bad game. They just had one of those games where they didn't know if they were playing. They didn't know if they were playing. They didn't know. They just didn't know. I'm not trying to make excuses for it or whatever, but I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs on this one. But I think the Bills are going to be playing better games than what they did against Tennessee.
I thought you were going with the Bills, bro. I thought, yeah, the last, yeah. I got the Chiefs in this one. Like you mentioned, the Bills were bad Tuesday night. And partly in case because it was the first real test that they had, the first real defense that they played against. And maybe, I mean, we know the Bills' defense has not been on par as what we've known over the last few years. So now that they start getting into a tougher part of their schedule, I wouldn't be shocked if the Bills start to lose a couple of games. This might be 2 in a row for them. I'm taking the Chiefs.
All right.
They beat the Raiders, and the Raiders beat the Chiefs.
The Bills, the Buffalo Bills. You know what? They're going to bounce back pretty hard from that loss. We'll see what happens, but I'm taking the Chiefs. Scott, is that how you did it? I'm just kidding. You know, I think this is going to be a damn close game. I think this is going to come down to a last-minute drive, and honestly, it's going to be whoever has the ball in under 2 minutes. And the way game management works when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs, it's going to be Mahomes, and that's why I'm taking the Chiefs.
One thing about the Chiefs defense, they only show up every other week. So last week was an off week. They'll come to play this week.
They'll be back. Last Monday night game we have is the Arizona Cardinals versus the new quarterback toting Dallas Cowboys. For anybody who's listening in, you know, I'm cutting you off just for the fart noise you made. For anybody who's listening in, Dak Prescott is doing well. Continue, Scott.
I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys.
Ooh.
I think they actually are going to be playing. I don't think there's going to be a transition. They even may excel a little bit differently with Andy Dalton, the quarterback. He's an experienced quarterback. He's got wins under his belt. He's not that bad of a quarterback that when he was in Cincinnati. Just couldn't win a playoff game. Nobody can in Cincinnati. So I think they continue that role. Arizona just lost Taylor Jones for the year with a torn bicep. They're hurting on defense. I'm going with the Cowboys.
I would agree with you if the Dallas Cowboys could figure out how to stop Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. But even if they do, let's not forget, one of the best receivers to ever play the game still plays for the Arizona Cardinals. So if they do start that comparison, Larry Fitzgerald's still there. And I'm going with the Cardinals.
I'm taking the Cardinals as well. There's no defense in this game. We know the Cowboys cannot guard a chair. And that's very evident. And the Cardinals dealing with the injuries they have defensively, it's going to be a shootout. And with a quarterback in Andy Dalton who's making his first start with Dallas with some different receivers that he's never played with, I don't know what to expect with the Cowboys. Could the Cowboys win? Absolutely. I don't doubt that. Andy Dalton's a very underrated quarterback and probably, I would say, the best backup quarterback in the league, and because he probably should be starting somewhere, and he is now. But I'm not going to bank on that because, again, it's his first start, new offense. Cowboys' defense is absolutely terrible. I like the Cardinals being able to put up points, and Cowboys might not match it.
All right. I also like
to have the ball last type game.
Yeah. I feel like we're having that scenario with a lot of the games that are going on this weekend. I also like the fact that Scott's going opposite of a lot of our picks, so that's the opportunity for us to bounce back up into Guys, let's transition into top 5 because I can't wait to once again hear how different everyone's top 5 is. Who wants to start it off with number 5?
All right, my number 5, I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Their secondary this past weekend relied a little bit too much on the pass rush because everybody kept saying that they could probably break the all-time sacks record in one game. I feel like they were a little bit sluggish, coming off of bye and stuff. Big Ben still continues to show out. I don't know why no one's talking about the fact that the man's on pace for 40 touchdowns and 4 picks right now, but he's playing out of his freaking mind. So they're my number 5 team right now.
My number 5 team is the Seattle Seahawks.
Wow.
Yeah, they dropped a few spots. You can only just barely win so many games. I understand that they're still defeated, but their defense just needs to step up.
Damn, bro, you gonna make me quote Vin Diesel again? Again?
Let's hear it.
To this day. That's a Deontay Wilder quote, but it doesn't matter if you're winning by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning. Come on now.
Bro, when you said that, it just something clicked in my head. I'm like, who the fuck's that?
I'm trying to think of all the movies. I'm like, why did he say that? Who's your number 5, Jeff?
Mine, so a little disclaimer before I talk about these 5. We're splitting hairs. I feel like all these teams are very close, especially after Kansas City losing. I think that really kind of puts everyone in this big pit of...
Oh, they dropped to like 15 in my eyes. I'm just kidding. Keep going.
I've got the Baltimore Ravens at number 5. They were impressive this past week, shutting out Cincinnati. Now, some people might say that that's not really an impressive task, but to only give up 3 points to Joe Burrow, who has played very well throughout the year, and even though the Bengals have lost, they've never been shut down like that. So you got to give a lot of credit to the Ravens defense there. I like the 4 teams that I have ahead of the Ravens. I like a little bit more, but I got Ravens at 5.
Ravens at 5. Okay. All right. Who do you got at 4? Let's go back to you.
Number 4 might surprise both of you. I got the Packers at number 4. And it was more so because they didn't play this past week. Out of sight, out of mind. Usually a team with a bye week in like college football rankings, they either stay put or they drop a little bit depending on if other teams win. And we'll get into that with my number 3 of why I'm switching things. Packers are still good. They still have, an elite offense. Maybe this is a bye week to figure out what they need to do defensively. I think if the Packers had to play the Ravens, I think the Packers end up winning because I think the phrase of used to be defense wins championships, I feel like is a little outdated now because I feel like there are so many benefits, so many penalties that benefit the offensive team. So I think you need to have that elite offense to win nowadays. So that's why I've got the Packers over the Ravens. Packers at 4.
All right. Gonna double quote you on the splitting hairs thing because the top 4 on my team, I feel like we're all kind of tough to figure out who goes where. But at number 4, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. I just think that the Oakland Raider loss at home means more to them, or means more in general than we really think it does. The Oakland Raiders aren't a bad team, but I did not expect the Kansas City Chiefs to lose the way they lost, being the team that everybody says they are. So I have them at 4. Scott.
I have the Chiefs at 4 right now too, but I feel like that's going to change come next week. And then adding Le'Veon Bell and stuff, we'll wait and see what they get out of him. But they did not look good offensively or defensively. It seems like they pick and choose when they want to show up. This is why I've always had my doubts about Kansas City, is that they're not on a consistent basis as everybody as much as they like to. Hilaire hasn't done anything since week 1. What was called like this? That's why they went out and got what they did. They need to establish some type of running game. If they don't establish that soon enough, then eventually people can contain Mahomes, and they're not going as far as they would like to go this year.
All right, Scott, I'm going to stick with you for number 3.
Number 3, I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks. Yeah, I agree with Jacob. Win's a win. And Russell Wilson continues to add to his MVP resume this year. Defensively, they're still struggling. It was plain to see maybe when Harrison, the D tackle Snacks, starts getting more comfortable with that defense, they'll be a little bit better. But I got to give it to him, man. When Russell has that ball, he's just calm, cool, and collective. And he knows how to win a game. But they're probably the number 3 team right now. For right now, they could fall out.
My number 3, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jumping up to number 3 in my list. Their defense has looked damn good. Although they let the most points allowed this season to the Philadelphia Eagles, it'd be interesting to see what team actually has what it takes to beat them. And maybe we'll find out the next couple weeks. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll find out this weekend against the Browns. Jacob, over to you.
I also have the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 3. And you're alluding to the defense, how they looked somewhat sluggish against Philly. They gave up the most points they have all season. They're not going to play perfect every single game. That's just the reality of it is, bad hair day, whatever you want to call it. They're not going to play perfect every single game, but they did enough to win. The offenses looked very good. Big Ben has come back, and I don't think necessarily is shocking people, but I think some people are maybe a little surprised at how he's basically picked up where he left off before the injury and maybe been a little bit better. Clearing up the elbow can sometimes help, a quarterback or whether it's a pitcher in baseball, help him be a little bit better. He's clearly done that. They're motivated. They're having fun is a big thing. A big reason why I have them at 3 is because out of all the teams that we're talking about in the top 5, other than the Ravens for me, Steelers have that best defense. And that's why they moved up for me. The offense continues to stay consistent. The defense continues to be elite. Who knows how far they're going to go with this undefeated record.
All right. Let's hear your number 2.
So going on to my number 2, again going on the fact that one game to me is not going to determine whether or not a team drops a lot. I've got Kansas City at number 2. They've been my number 1. They're still at number 2. Obviously, the elite offense. You talked about they struggled against Oakland. They still scored 32 points. And in most games, when you score 32 points, you're going to win. So defensively, that's their biggest problem. We've all known that. They're inconsistent. They show up one game. They don't show up in the other. 2 weeks ago, they only gave up 20 points to the Ravens. This week, they gave up 40 to Oakland. So you can see the difference. It's just a game planning thing. Matchups make everything. I still like the Chiefs. I still like the offense. Adding Le'Veon Bell potentially gives them another big bump because I think that's another thing that has been missing in the Kansas City offense is the checkdowns to the running back and making the additional 4, 5, 6 yards to pick up first downs on 3rd and short or 2nd and short. So I still got the Chiefs at 2.
All right. My number 2 is a team who unfortunately got plagued with COVID for, the past couple weeks or past week, the Tennessee Titans. Able to come back and play a game after taking a week off of COVID cases in their facility, not being able to practice, and coming out and beating the Buffalo Bills 42-16. That was an unreal game, and I'm sorry if this is too early to talk about, but Coach of the Year conversations about Mike Vrabel?
Homer.
Listen, call me a homer all you want, but this man, last year when I looked at the Tennessee Titans, I looked at them as a team who just barely made it to the playoffs and a team of misfits. They're like the island of misfit toys, and you know what? They're kicking ass this year. So I take that back. I take that statement away because they are a sound, solid team, and they're going to continue to run over teams. Scott.
Number 2 team is the Green Bay Packers. They had a bye week this past week. Their defense. What?
I'm trying to think. Who do you have at 1? If you're like all
see.
the other teams,
Yeah.
I know that's what I was just thinking in my head. Like, wait, who does he have at 1?
Yeah.
Number 2 is the Packers. They had a bye week. Like I said before, we're going to wait and see. I think, like I said before, the Tampa Bay defense is a little bit better than what people think. We're going to wait and see how those receivers that nobody really knows about, and if Devontae Adams is actually coming back this week, we'll wait and see as well. But I have them at number 2. That probably could change if they beat Tampa. They could probably slide back up into that number 1 slot. But as of right now, I have them at number 2.
All right, Scott. Well, let's stick with you because I kind of want to hear your number 1 now.
My number 1 team, and it's going to shock a lot of people, is the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
I had a feeling that's where he was going.
Yeah.
They're the number 1 team. Defensively, they're grounded. Adding Javion Clowney, even though he's not really sacking, like he's not really a sack linebacker. Tannehill has played. They did a side-by-side comparison since he became the starter at Tennessee. He has the same numbers as Patrick Mahomes, touchdown to interception wise. Since that day, he became Tennessee Titans quarterback. Which also proves another point for another story. He got out of Adam Gase's offense and went to an offense where he can flourish. And they're focusing on the running game. I know they said they're a running team and stuff like that, but it's a team effort. You scratch my back, I scratch your back, and they all work together. Tannehill's playing great. He got the contract he wants. They still haven't got Davis back, or Corey Davis. Is that his name, Jacob?
Yeah, I mean he's been playing, but he just had COVID, so he did not play Tuesday. It was AJ Brown was out for the injury, but he's back now.
Yeah. Well, as of right now, they're the team. Soundly. And the team that was off for 2 weeks. And they came in, like, I don't like the mentality that they did. Like, some people are saying that they feel like it was them against the world. It's not even that. They were off for 2 weeks, and they didn't even skip the beat against a team that faced some pretty good teams. They faced the Rams, they faced the Raiders, and they spanked them on live TV. So, I'm interested to see how far they go.
We're swapped. I had Titans at 2. I got Packers at 1. I know they had a bye week last week, and as Jacob alluded to earlier, when some teams have off weeks, sometimes they slip in the rankings, but I'm still keeping them at number 1 because their offense, their defense is part of the reason why they probably shouldn't be at my number 1, but their offense is, hands down, looks like the most dominant offense in the league right now. And I have a very strong feeling that there's a possibility that they're going to go out and make Tampa Bay look silly. And if that happens, they're going to stick in my number 1. And if it doesn't happen, we'll see. Jacob.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree that the Packers, this is a game against the Bucs that could really make or break what people think of them. My number 1, I'm sticking with Seattle. I like Seattle at 1. They're still undefeated. I know Michael mentioned how many times can you win these close games, but that's the thing. When you've got an MVP candidate like Russell Wilson, the great teams find ways to win no matter what. They were losing 13-0 at the half, and they scored 21 points in the third quarter. And great teams, especially like they make that halftime adjustment and then they take off. So they found a way to come back and win this game. So depending on the way you want to look at it, yeah, they played terrible in the first half, getting shut out. Defense gave up 13 points. But the defense was also probably tired from being on the field the entire first half. Because the offense wasn't moving the ball, wasn't doing anything. But the offense found a way in the second half to make a big impact. And they found a way to crawl back and have the resiliency to win. What other teams in the top 5 have we seen them come behind from a double-digit deficit this season? I don't know. So it being fresh, relative on my mind, that's why I've got Seattle at 1, because even though it was another close game and they barely pulled it out, the fact that they were able to come from behind down 13-0 with 2 quarters to play and got the victory kind of shows to me that they have more heart than maybe some of these other teams don't have.
I respect that. All right, guys, I know we're running low. Well, guys, I know we're running out of time. We do have time for one more segment. Everybody's favorite, the what to watch for this week and next. Who wants to lead us off?
I talked about it earlier with the boxing. Lomachenko, Lopez. I've been waiting for this fight for about a year now. I can't wait to watch. I think Loma wins, but I am rooting for Teofimo Lopez to get the upset. And if you're looking for a good betting line, it really is, in my opinion, a 50-50 fight. But Teofimo Lopez is like plus 400. So you put $20 on him, you can win 80. So just let you know, that's probably what I'm doing. I'm rooting for Lopez. It's going to be a hell of a fight. I don't necessarily care who wins because it's just going to be an amazing fight. I can't wait for it.
Scott, over to you.
I want to watch is another match or fight is Brian Ortega versus the Korean Zombie. This fight has been 2 years in the making. They do not like each other. There's a lot of drama. Brian Ortega has slapped his fighting coach in the face of Korean Zombies at a boxing match or a fight before. They've talked a lot of shit. And whoever wins this fight is in line to be the number one contender for the belt. So it's going to be a really good fight on ESPN Plus this weekend, so it won't interfere with the boxing fights at all. So it's going to be a good fight to watch.
Mine is also a fight. The fight for the number one spot in the SEC. Don't give me a hard time because I'm picking my team. I know that's the rule, and I will never break the rule again.
No, it is a hell of a game. So
It's going to be a hell of a game. It's honestly, even as a Georgia fan, it's a bummer Nick Saban can't be there because he's got COVID. Now, if
is it
somehow,
really though? Is it really
no,
though?
honestly,
that
it
maybe
is.
gives you an advantage.
No, it does. But I don't know if you guys know this. No former assistant coach of Nick Saban's has ever beaten him. The only one who has come close is Kirby Smart. Obviously, I want to see Kirby the first, but let's say Georgia wins this weekend. Does that count? He's not on the field. He's not coaching.
If they win,
It still counts.
It'd be like Bennett, because Bennett the fourth can make them 4-0. I heard that joke last weekend from somebody who will remain nameless.
All right, guys, that's everything we have. We are East Coast rivals, Jacob Southpaw Stiesla, Scott Braveheart Baylor, and Michael McCormick signing out.
God
Talk to you
damn
later.
it!
What the fuck?